Hi, Bill 1911 here. Today I'd like to talk to you about something that's very important to us, and that's your safety. Do not attempt any of the things you see on our videos until you have thoroughly reviewed and understood our safety procedures. Also, if you're under 18 years of age, do not attempt any of these topics without the consent of your parent or guardian. Thank you. Before we get started, once again, as is always the case with any firearm that we're going to disassemble, take apart, clean, all the rest, the first thing we are going to do is make certain that the firearm is completely empty, that there is no ammunition in this firearm at all. Also, we are going to make certain that there is no ammunition in the area where we are working on the gun. Hi, Bill 1911 here. Today, we're going to talk about my namesake, the John M. Browning invented, patented, Colt 1911. This particular gun is a Colt. Okay, so let's get started taking this beautiful gun apart. Now, the first thing we're going to talk about is a little bit about the different parts that are on the gun. This lever right here is called the slide lock or slide release. Now, it has two purposes. When we are shooting the gun, when we've fired the last round in the magazine and it is empty, this will automatically be pushed up by the magazine follower, causing the slide to lock open. Okay? This allows us, after we eject the magazine, put a fresh one in with bullets in it, okay, we can then push this down and the slide loads the next round into the gun. Okay? So it kind of has two names, slide release or slide lock. Alright? The next thing we're going to talk about is this button piece right here on the front of the gun. This particular part is called a recoil spring follower. It's kind of a cap that goes over the end of the recoil spring. It keeps the recoil spring from spitting out the front of the gun. It follows it. The next piece we're going to talk about is called the barrel bushing. Now, that's kind of a little awkward for me to show it to you, but that's this little metal piece that I'm moving around here. Alright? So, this is called the barrel bushing. Now, when we're going to take the gun apart, what we do is we press this button in and rotate that barrel bushing to the side. Now, it will go all the way over to the side in one direction. The other direction, it won't rotate all the way around. So there's only one way you can go with it. It won't be hard to figure out. Then you're going to release that button and take the pressure off of the recoil spring. Okay? That allows you to freely move the slide wherever you need to. I'll show you in a minute why that's important. In order to disassemble the gun, we have to remove the slide release or slide lock from the frame. The next thing we're going to point to is on the slide, there's a large indentation right here. That's where the slide lock locks the slide back when the gun is being operated. There is a second, smaller indentation right here that's kind of half moon shaped. Now, John M. Browning was a genius of mechanical engineering. He designed this gun in such a way to allow us to take it apart without the use of any tools. Alright? This button right here on the opposite side of the gun from the slide release is part of the slide release. When we press this in, it will push it out through the other side. Now, do you remember me talking about that half moon shaped indenture in the slide here? Okay, this little cutout right here in the slide is there so that when we do put our finger on this button on the other side of the gun and press it out, it pops that slide release right out of the gun. Now we simply take a hold of it, pull it out. At that point, we slide the slide and barrel and recoil spring right off the end of the frame. It's as simple as that. Now that's how we do what's known as field stripping the gun. When you want to take the barrel out, okay, the first thing you're going to need to do is remove the recoil spring. In order to do that, you're going to take this right out of here, pull it out. It's going to be a snug fit. And then you're going to slide that recoil spring right out through the front of the frame. Now, you remember that bushing would only turn clear around to the side in one direction? Well, here's where that becomes important. Now we're going to rotate it back the other way, and that will allow us to slide the bushing completely out of the frame. If you will look, there's a little cam right here on the side of this bushing. That locks into a ridge that runs around the inside of the slide. That's going to lock this bushing into the barrel when it's in the firing position, because it's over here locked into that. Once we rotate it back, we can slide it right out between these 2 points, and the bushing will come right out of the frame that way. All right. Now we're going to eject the barrel right out of the front of the frame. In order to do that, we have to pick up on it a little bit and slide it forward. Now it's going to slide right out through the front of the slide, just like that. And that's how we disassemble the gun for cleaning. It's ready to be cleaned now. So, let's get started on cleaning. In order to clean it, we're going to need a few things. We're going to need some gun cleaning patches. Now, I make my own patches, and I have quite a lot of them because I clean a lot of guns. You probably won't need anywhere near this many. So, just a few, you'll get a long way with just a few of these patches. So, grab a few, put them on your bench where you're going to work. You're going to need a gun cleaning jag. Alright, now this particular gun is .45 caliber, so we're going to get the .45 caliber jag out of our little jag kit. Now, if you just have the one gun, you don't need an entire collection of these. Since I have a lot of different guns, and I clean a lot of different guns, I have a bunch of these jags. There are a great many that I have, 17 caliber, 22 caliber. So I use all these different jags. You probably won't need that many of them, just the one that's specific to the caliber of your gun. The jag screws into our cleaning rod, which you will need one of these to clean your gun. Screws right into the end of it like that, okay? And then our cleaning patch will then, let me get one of these out. Our cleaning patch will then be put onto this little tip right here that's sticking out. That's going to go right through your patch and hold it into place. Now, we're also going to need a cleaning solvent. I use a lot of this, so I ended up buying military surplus cleaning solvent because it's something I'm familiar with and it was pretty cheap. So since I do a lot of this, I wanted to cut my cost. We're also going to need a lubricating oil. Now, we're not suggesting that you buy any particular brand. What we are suggesting is that it is specifically designed as firearms oil, specifically gun oil. This is what you want. Some guns have some plastic parts in them. Certain oils can react with certain plastic parts and cause those parts to decay or in some cases swell up. In other words, it can be bad for the gun. So you want to make sure that you use a purpose-designed gun oil. That is important to the health of your gun. So, from here, we're going to wet our patch with our solvent. Okay, now as you can see, my fingers are starting to get dirty because this gun does need to be cleaned. Now, we're going to clean any place where we, of course, visibly see any dirt. Stick that patch down in there, and you can see it's getting quite a bit out of it. And we're going to get all of the dirt out of this that we can possibly get. Alright? Take your patch, stick it down in all those little crevices and corners, and get as much of that dirt out of there as you can possibly get. You're going to want to get up in here, everywhere you can reach to get in there, to get any of that dirt out of that gun. That's what you want to do. Alright? Okay, so it also isn't going to hurt you to take one of these patches and clean the outside of the gun. Now the outside of the gun is going to have dirt on it too. Don't worry, it won't be as much, but it will have it on it. Now this gun was really dirty today, so I shot it recently, so it's got a lot on it. As you can see, our patch is pretty dirty. Once we're done cleaning up the slide, we also want to do the same thing on the frame. Everything we can get to, we want to scrub it down real good. Now some people like to use WD-40 for this. I personally don't. And it's for the same reason that I told you you should use a purpose-built gun lubricating oil. WD-40 is not specifically designed for guns, and therefore I don't use it on them. There is a product called Gun Scrub that you can buy that is in an aerosol can, and it's excellent for washing out particularly dirty guns like this one is dirty now. It's very good for that. So you want to get everything cleaned up as best you can. Alright, now this is a normal cleaning. Later on, we're going to take the gun completely apart. We're going to take all these parts out of the handle, everything, and I'll show you how to do that in another video. Now, we also want to clean the spring. Now, in order to get the spring off of the follower, all we really have to do is kind of twist it out. There's a little divot right here in this follower that kind of acts like the threads on a bolt, and it catches right here in the spring and just kind of screws into place and makes the spring solid with the follower. Alright, if you push it in and you rotate it the wrong way till you hear it go click, then you rotate it back and it's locked into place. Alright, but we're taking it off right now so we can clean our spring. Now, the best way I know of to do this is to take your patch, stick it right between the spring, and crank it through like it's a bolt, just like that, from one end to the other. And you're going to get that entire spring nice and clean. Now, toward the back end of the spring, it is going to come to a point where it's not going to just screw through because the spring closes on the end right here. But when we get to that, we can simply pull the patch out. Now the spring is clean. We're going to do the same thing on all of these parts. When your patch gets dirty, set it aside with your dirty patches, get another one, wet it with solvent, and continue cleaning. We're just going to clean everything up. Every part. Now once we're finished cleaning all these parts, we're going to clean the barrel of the gun as well. Now that is very, very important. We're going to clean the outside of the barrel because these ridges, if they get filled with burnt powder, carbon, dirt, dried up oil, the barrel will not hook into these ridges that are inside the slide, that are right here, that lock the barrel for firing. So we want to clean the outside of the barrel just like we clean the inside of the barrel. Get it all cleaned up. Now, getting dirty again, so we're going to get another clean patch. We're going to wet it, and we're going to apply it to our gun cleaning rod. We grab it and we pull it down over the top of that little spear that's on the end of our jag until it pops through the patch, which this one's really giving me a hard time. Okay, there it is. It went through. Now, we're going to come from the back end of the barrel. In other words, the end of the barrel where the bullet goes in. Okay, we're going to start there because this is going to be difficult to see. Inside the barrel, there's a little shoulder that's in there. You see the pen is touching up against it right now. All right, that shoulder gets dried powder, things like that, built up in there, and it causes the cartridge case to seat further and further and further back, and that can cause us a problem. So we want to make sure that that's clean. We're going to put it in there, we're going to turn it around a few times, and then we're going to push it the rest of the way through the barrel. Now it's a very tight fit, but we're going to push it all the way out the other end, like that. We take the patch off, and you can see right there how much stuff came out of the end of that barrel. Whole lot of it came out. We're going to repeat this procedure several times to make sure it's nice and clean. Now, when you want to look down through the barrel to make sure it's clean, it's kind of dark in there. So what you can do is take a clean white patch, and you use this kind of like a reflector, and you look straight through your barrel, right down through here. You're going to look right through, all the way through the barrel, and you're going to reflect the light off of that patch, and you'll be able to see right down into that barrel. I'm going to see if I can show you this from this end. You can see it's kind of dark down there, but can you see how it lit up once I put that patch down there? You can now see the barrel much more clearly on the inside because we are reflecting light back up into the barrel. So once we've got it all cleaned up like this, it's time to lubricate it and put it back together. Now, we don't want to over lubricate the gun, but we also don't want to under lubricate it. If you'll look, you're going to see right in here a shiny little line that's right through here on the gun. Okay, that's where two metal parts are rubbing together. The slide rail, you can see the shine on there, and the frame, they fit together and they rub against each other. So that's an area where we definitely want lubrication. All right, where we don't want lubrication, we don't want it down here where we're trying to hold on to the gun so the gun becomes slippery. So we don't do that. Any place where we see where parts are moving metal on metal, like where the hammer rotates into a firing position, okay, you'll see right back here on the back of the hammer, this little point right here is called a strut rod. Now that's a rod that goes down into the handle to another spring that makes the hammer move, okay. It's a very stiff little spring, by the way. this dovetail piece sticking out on the back. Okay, this is called the grip safety, and it does move. There's a pin that goes through it. It's the pin that's connected to the safety catch here. It goes all the way out the other side. Okay. We want to lubricate that point because that's metal that wears together. All right. We want to lubricate our spring. Okay. We want to lubricate our spring followers. We want to lubricate the shaft on our slide release. And right here, this little tube that's on the side of the gun has little springs and buttons in it. Now we want to lubricate those because those are points of potential wear. All right, there's one on the front and one on the back. Those are called detents for our slide release, slide lock, and our safety catch. We want to put a drop down around this button where it meets the frame and let it run into the frame to lubricate this button right here. This is our magazine release. We want to put a drop in here on both sides of the trigger and let it soak its way through. Anywhere where you see moving parts, there's a little button here. This is called the disconnect. We want to put a drop of oil on that. So let's begin. Now when I say use a drop of oil, I mean just that. It doesn't take a lot. This oil is designed to hit the metal and spread out over it. So it doesn't take a lot. Put a little drop or two in here. One in the front, one in the back usually is what I do. All right. And you can see how it's spreading when it hits. Okay. Put a little one there. A little one right there. A little one down in there, and it runs right down inside. Okay. Now, there we go. Anywhere where you see shiny metal, that's a place where you want to put a drop of oil. Alright, now, that's got the frame pretty well lubed up. We should be alright on that. Now, the slide is the same thing. You remember those ridges that we talked about that are down here inside the slide, right down in there? We want to put a drop of oil on those because the barrel is going to slide back and forth across the top of them, and these ridges are going to lock together. So again, wherever we've got metal that touches each other, we want to make sure we have a drop of oil. There's a part right down here that's called the barrel link. Now this is what attaches to the frame of the gun with the slide locking piece, the slide release piece. Okay, so we're going to want to drop of oil down in there because again it's a moving part. Okay, we get some oil in there and we're good on that. Now let's put a little bit down here inside on these lugs that are inside here. We're going to put a drop right down in here. You're going to see a hole. I don't know if you can see it on camera, but that little hole is where the firing pin comes up through the slide. We're going to want to put a drop on that end, and that will soak its way through into the firing pin. The firing pin also shows up on the back of the slide, so let's put a little piece there, a little drop. Alright, we see a nice shiny part right there, so let's put a drop there on the front, on the slide. Alright, okay. Alright, so that about does it for the slide. Now, on the spring, you can put a drop on it and let it run down, but I find that very cumbersome, so I put a couple of drops on my finger, like that, and I just take it and I rub it all up and down that spring and get it all coated up real good, just like that. Alright, we're going to put a little bit on the barrel itself. Remember, that barrel is going to be constantly moving back and forth through this barrel bushing. Those two mesh together all the time. Okay, they're constantly moving together. Every time you fire the gun, slide comes back and that bushing slides on that barrel. Okay, that's a contact point. So since I put the oil on here and then slid this over the top of it, I've lubricated the two together, so they've both now been lubricated. Alright, so let's reassemble. Alright, we're going to, just like we took it apart, we're going to slide the barrel right back up into the slide until it drops into that position. After we've got the barrel inserted into the slide, we're going to put the bushing back into the gun. Slides all the way up against and then rotates so it's at that 90-degree position sideways. Okay, you see how we're all the way around to the side now. Alright, we've rotated it into position. Now, do you remember on the spring, one end of the spring kind of closed up at the end, the windings came together. This end of the spring fits onto this part very tightly. We want that. If we do it the other way around, the gun doesn't have the right resistance on it. It doesn't really do what we want it to do. So we're going to stick it right onto that follower. Okay, now if you notice, it's just the very end of that spring that constricts. The rest of it moves freely. Okay? Now, once we're in position like that, we're going to take the recoil spring and slide it back through the slide, and we're going to put it back onto this follower. Now, if you notice, it constricts the spring right on the very end where it assembles with this follower piece. Once we're in this position, we can put the gun back together. We can take the frame and slide it right in the end of the rails and go forward. Okay, now we're going to line up that little half moon shaped indentation in the slide with this point right here. There's a big hole in the frame, so we're going to line that up. Alright, so we're in position. Now, you can take the gun now and you're going to kind of shake it a little bit. What that's going to do is it's going to drop that barrel link into position where we can put the slide in it. Now, if you run the barrel back and forth a little bit, you'll be able to look through the hole in the frame and see when your barrel link is in the right position. At that point, you're going to put your slide release slide rock right through, okay, and then press it up and into position and all the way through the gun. Okay, once that happens, your gun is back together with the exception of pushing that spring back into position, okay, rotating your bushing and then releasing the spring. Now this gun is reassembled. Pretty darn simple, and it's nicely lubricated and nice and clean. And that's all there is to basic cleaning on the 1911. If you found this video to be helpful and informative, please hit the like button up above. And don't forget, subscribe down below. And please come and visit us at askbill1911.com.